Why is Goblin Piledriver never sad? Because he has protection from the blues.
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further, as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. You can also use the promo code MTGMudsta for 5% off your orders from Face to Face Games, Canada's largest Magic the Gathering store, with qualified orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game was another one filmed in my studio, and Bryce, Eric, and Kuzno have rejoined us. Bryce is playing his Ur-Dragon deck, Eric is playing Ziatora, Kuzno is playing his new Nine-fingers Keene, and I'm playing my newly converted Tristani to Ghired deck. Bryce wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws, plays an Undergrowth Stadium, and passes. Eric plays a tap Stomping Grounds. I also have a tap land with a Sheltered Thicket, passing turn. Kuzno draws, plays a Tropical Island, and casts an Arbor Elf. Bryce has a Rejuvenating Springs, and casts Lightning Greaves. Eric draws, plays a Command Tower, and just casts Jury. I have a Forest, and cast my own Arbor Elf before passing to Kuzno. Kuzno draws, and plays a Manor Gate, choosing black as the other color, and passes turn. Bryce plays a Bloom Tender in his main phase, and equips the Lightning Greaves to it before passing to Eric. Eric has a Hunted Ridge, and casts Zorn. Moving to combat, he hits Bryce for 1 with Jury, and passes to me. I have a Command Tower, and just pass turn. Kuzno draws, plays a Watery Grave untapped, taking 2, and casts a Nine-fingers Keene before passing to Bryce. Bryce draws, and is able to cast a Dryad of Elysian Grove, and passes to Eric. Eric plays a Carplusian Forest, and then casts Jaxus the Troublemaker, passing turn after that. I have a Bountiful Promenade come in, and am able to cast Ghired. I make a Rhino token as my commander enters, and pass turn. Kuzno draws, and plays a Maze's End. Moving to combat, he swings Nine-fingers at Bryce. Bryce doesn't block, taking 4, but unfortunately Kuzno whiffs off of Nine-fingers trigger and finds no gates, and then passes turn. Bryce draws, plays a Plains, and casts a Scale Lord Reckoner. Eric draws and has a Twilight Mire for turn. He plays Korvold, sacrificing Jaxus to the trigger as it enters, drawing a card and putting a +1/+1 counter onto the dragon. I draw and play a Plains. I cast a main phase Beast Within on Korvold before going to combat. I swing Ghired and a Rhino at Kuzno and get to populate on attack, swinging that new token at Eric. Eric double blocks the Rhino with the Beast token and Jury, and Kuzno declares no blocks. I kill Jury with the combat damage, and Eric uses the On Death trigger to ping my Arbor Elf for 2. With the trigger targeting my elf, I tap it to untap Sheltered Thicket in response. We then move to my second main phase, and I cast a Feyburrow Elder and pass. Kuzno draws and plays a Forest. He swings Nine-fingers at me this time around, dealing 4, and he reveals a Gond Gate off the trigger. After combat, he plays Oko and makes Ghired into an Elk before passing turn. Bryce draws and plays a Xander's Lounge. He casts Teneb the Harvester and moves the Lightning Greaves over onto the dragon. Moving to combat, he swings Teneb at Oko and the Scale Lord Reckoner at me. Oko bites the dust, while I take the hit. In his second main phase, he moves the Greaves back over onto his Bloom Tender and passes to Eric. Eric draws and plays a Taiga. He then casts Ziatora, and once his commander's out, goes to combat. He swings the Beast token at Bryce, who blocks the Dryad, and with nothing else, Eric passes through his phases, moving to his end step. He sacrifices the beast token with Ziatora and deals 3 more damage to the Dryad, taking it out and making 3 treasures, which is actually 4 thanks to Zorn. On my upkeep, I cast a Worldly Tutor and go and grab an Elder Gargoth, then draw it for turn. I cast it in my main phase and pass. During my end step, Kuzno activates Maze's End, going to find a Basilisk Gate, putting it to field, and then puts the Maze's End to his hand. Kuzno draws, and in his main phase, replays Maze's End. He then casts Vraska, Relic Seeker, and Eric responds by casting a Riveteer's Charm to make him sacrifice his highest powered creature. Kuzno in response has a Fierce Guardianship, and Vraska resolves. He then downticks the Walker to kill Ziatora in a move for revenge. Moving to combat, Kuzno swings Nine-fingers at Eric, but unfortunately once more whiffs on gates as it connects, and passes to Bryce. Bryce draws, and plays an Elesh Norn. As she resolves, she wipes away most of the Mana Dorks and Zorn. Moving to combat, he swings the Reckoner at Vraska and Teneb at Eric, and both take their hits. With nothing else, he passes turn. Eric draws, and plays an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. He then kindly returns the Praetor favor with a Shoulder of his own, and passes to me. I sacrifice my Elked Ghired on my upkeep to Shouldered and draw for turn. I then cast Wolfgar in my main phase and go to combat, swinging the Gargoth at Kuzno and getting 2 on attack triggers, choosing to draw 2 cards. I then play a Plains and pass turn. Kuzno sacrifices Nine-fingers on his upkeep and then draws. He activates the Maze's End, going to find a Golgari Guildgate, and bounces the Maze's End back to hand. He then replays it for his land for turn, and follows up by casting Gate Colossus and passes to Bryce. Bryce sacrifices the Scale Lord Reckoner on his upkeep and draws. He plays a Duplicant in his main phase, exiling Shouldered and passing to Eric. Eric draws and plays a tapped Game Trail. He then plays Ognis and immediately victimizes it to bring back Jaxus and Korvold. They come in tapped, and Korvold has Eric sacrificing a treasure token, drawing a card, and putting a +1/+1 counter onto the dragon. Once that's done, he passes turn. I draw and go to combat again. I swing the Gargoth at Eric this time, dealing 4 and getting 2 on attack triggers, drawing 2 cards. I then play a Kadama's Reach in my post-combat main phase, ramping a bit before I pass turn. On my end step, Kuzno casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing a land to go and find Thespian Stage. Kuzno draws and plays a Bajuka Bog, exiling Bryce's graveyard. He then activates the Basilisk Gate on the Gate Colossus and swings it at Bryce, who declares no blocks. However, Kuzno has the blowout of all blowouts with a Tainted Strike for lethal infect damage. Bryce has no answer to this and gets taken out, and Kuzno then passes turn. On his end step, I cast Path to Exile on Eric's Korvold before he untaps. Eric draws and plays the Daemogoth Woe Eater and passes to me. I draw and play a Mountain. I cast a Port Racer and then cast Twin Flame, targeting it. But Eric responds with an Assassin's Trophy and targets it as well. It gets destroyed, and I go and find a land. Going to combat, I swing Wolfgar at Eric and the Gargoth at Kuzno, once more getting 2 triggers from the Gargoth and drawing 2. Kuzno takes the damage, while Eric chumps with the Woe Eater. After that, I pass turn, and Kuzno inches ever closer to a Maze's End Wind as he activates it to go and find Baldur's Gate during my end step. Kuzno draws and replays his Maze's End. He activates Baldur's Gate for 5 blue, and uses some of it to help cast Nine-fingers, and then plays an Invisible Stalker. With nothing else, he passes. Eric draws, and recasts his commander in his main phase. He then plays a tap Blood Crypt, passing to me. I draw for turn, and cast Gala Greeters in my main phase, followed by a Terror of the Peaks, which as it enters, triggers the Greeters to make me a treasure token. Moving to combat, I swing the Gargoth at Eric, making 2 Beast tokens this time, putting both triggers from the Terror to take out Ziatora. I also gain 2 life and get a counter on the Greeters, while Eric takes the hit. After that, I pass turn. Kuzno draws and activates Baldur's Gate to cast and equip Sword of Feast and Famine to Nine-fingers. He then activates Maze's End for a Black Dragon Gate, choosing blue as it enters, and then replays Maze's End as his land for turn. Kuzno then copies Basilisk Gate with the Thespian Stage and goes to combat. He swings Nine-fingers at me, and I can't block thanks to the Pro Green and Menace. I also have to discard a card because of the sword trigger, while Kuzno unfortunately whiffs once more in the Nine-fingers trigger. In his post-combat main phase, he moves the sword over onto the Invisible Stalker, and then plays Open the Gates, going to find a gate before passing turn. Eric draws and plays Galta. After that, he passes turn. I draw and play a Karmic Guide, dealing 2 to Kuzno's face as it comes in, and then reanimating the Serra Emissary. The Terror then deals 7 to Eric's face, and I make a treasure token and put a counter onto the Gala Greeters from the ETB triggers. With the Emissary coming in, I pick creatures as the card type, and then go to combat. I swing 2 beasts, Wolfgar, and the Greeters at Kuzno, while the Gargoth and Terror go at Eric. With my on-attack triggers doubled, Wolfgar gets melee twice, and I get to make 2 more tokens from the Gargoth, dealing 6 to Eric's face, and take him out of the game, while Kuzno drops to 3 life. After that I pass, and Kuzno activates Maze's End, going to find a Dimir Guildgate on my end step. Kuzno draws and plays a Gateway Plaza, however he's 1 gate short of completing Maze's End, and knows he's beat, scooping it up. Game review time. So I feel a little bad for Bryce since he got knocked out with that Tainted Strike. It was interesting for him not to block considering how many creatures he had, but I guess he was hoping to be able to save them for a better swing later on. Considering that Nine-fingers Keene is only 3 colors, Kuzno got really close to having enough gates to win with Maze's End. I was really impressed with the deck overall. Even though he whiffed a couple of times, it seems like there's enough support for gates to be able to do it pretty reliably. Although I could see that Nine-fingers Keene is probably better in a 5-color deck that's focused on gates rather than a Sultai deck. Eric's Ziatora deck actually didn't get to do a whole heck of a lot, and although we saw some pretty cool cards like Jaxus and Orgus, it didn't really amount to anything. Ziatora really only got to fling 1 thing, but I do know that that deck can get pretty out of hand. Since the filming of this game, I've played about 5 or 6 other games with Ghired. This was originally my Tristani Graveyard Token Reanimator deck, and it feels a little bit different since it's so heavily focused around combat since that's the way to trigger Populate with Ghired. It is by no means bad. Red allows us to get a lot of cards like Faithless Looting where we can draw and discard cards to our graveyard, which we can then reanimate with stuff like Seance. Not to mention red has a ton of sorceries and creatures that allow us to make token copies of creatures we already have, which are easily then populated with the rest of the cards. It just feels functionally different, and the win cons are very different as well. I think I'll have to test it a lot more before I can make a final decision. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.